councillors, thank you. 331, can I have somebody move? No, sorry, skip one. 321, can I have somebody move my report be received, please? Move to Councillor Hanson, second to Councillor Peoples. Those in favour, 7-0. I won't go into this in great detail before your questions. Sufficient to say that probably the most exciting meeting I had was with Ergon Energy. Really positive meeting that was set up by Minister de Brenny and Deputy Premier Miles as a result of a representation that the CEO and I made to Brisbane around power supply issues in our council area. They have identified, before we even spoke to Ergon, they presented to us a very detailed snapshot of power issues. They're aware of it, not as acutely aware as they want to be, so they're developing with us a process to help capture more detailed information about the low voltage issues that are being experienced predominantly on SWERs. They are aware of switching issues and infrastructure issues for some of our towns. Alpha remains their predominant concern, but they're not blind to some issues in Aramac and some more substantial issues in Muttaburra. So this is a watch and see this place. Brett and I had a very productive 1 hour meeting with them, very open, very transparent with their issues. Had subsequent follow-up from the regional director in that regard via email, looking to arrange a face-to-face. So no concrete outcomes that will deliver better power at this point, but it would be unrealistic to expect that. We've got a very good first step there that's been arranged through government contacts for us. So yeah, obviously there's a lot of issues in my agenda, in my report there that you may wish to question on, and possibly might be the odd meeting that didn't get fully captured there whilst I was in Brisbane for the week. But I assure you that I haven't been letting the grass grow underneath my feet. We've been busy. So, questions?
I'll just make a comment on that Ergon issue. They stressed to us that if there is any power issue or outage, that it has to be reported because that's their only means of taking rectification action. Just accepting it, the power went out and it'll come back on. That means nothing gets recorded in their system, so then they don't know there's a problem.
The absolute power outages they've captured. It's the low voltage ones that they have real big problems with knowing that they've occurred. So if you have them brownout type events, make sure you ring every time and report them. But they are putting in place they're looking at what they've got in the way of installing some loggers on some key lines for us, and we'll follow up with some more detail for them at the next meeting about where might be a best fit for that.
Really, Mr. Mayor, is that would it be beneficial for us to let people know the importance of doing that just in the Gazette, or even though Barkey, but in those areas, to report even a brownout, not just.
We're going to look at that Gazette, perhaps with even the methodology when we develop it with Ergon. So maybe a blank form that they can use to capture the information or the process that they need to go through. So it really, in the Aramac area, the Fleetwood area is an area that they're extremely concerned about, and then there's 3 SWERs at Alpha plus Muttaburra Town that's right at the top of their red light alarm. All right, 331. Have someone move Brett's report, please. Councillor Peoples, second to Councillor Rogers. Those in favour, carried. Brett.
Mr. Mayor, just start off with an apology. I was due to present a report on road upgrades, road maintenance issues to this meeting. Due to the enormous amount of work that we've had over the last month and meetings, I was unable to meet that deadline. So that report will come in the January meeting.
Any further?
So probably a couple of issues we've got called in water supply. The PLC at the Acacia Street bore has failed, and that controls the operation of all the pumps, the automatic, because they're variable speed pumps, so that controller controls the pumps cutting in and out. That has failed, so we're pumping the water manually, so someone has to go down and turn the pumps on and off. That's obviously put pressure on Pomona as well. So we have, I've engaged Simmons and Bristow to come up, and they're actually here today, which Vlad was meeting them today, so that may be why he's left the room. So they're going to look at both water sites, do an analysis and see exactly what the state of affairs is, what's needed, what we need to do urgently, and what's the long-term budget implications to bring those sites up to standard. Probably the PLC is you can't just buy it off the shelf. They're designed, there's bespoke units that are designed for each site. So that is one ongoing issue. Luckily, we have had some rain, which does ease the water pressure issues. Another one, in the building our regions application, so we applied for the Aramac sewage treatment plant as per council resolution. Telstra, in the meantime, has started projects with different councils about putting automatic water meters in. So they approached us during the month and said, could they lodge an application as well? There's no financial contribution by council, and to install automatic water meters, so we don't have to read water meters. Residents can read their water meter on their phone or device. I've started the project in Mount Isa, so as there is no contribution from council, I agree to allow that application to go in.
There's got to be some return to Telstra for putting them in, so where they must charge the water user, do they? What happens there?
Oh, sorry, when I say no capital contribution for the installation,
Yeah.
so it's fully 100% funding. There is an ongoing cost of monitoring the meters, which is where Telstra obviously gets their funding, because you have to use data connectivity. So when we submit the applications, I had to rank them in priority order. So Aramac was number one priority. This water meters was number two on our list. So we'll see what happens. It'll provide savings in a number of areas. If it does get up, it'll save having to read the water meters. It'll give us accurate data, real-time data, so every day you can look and see what water's being used, where it's being used. Residents can see how much water they're using.
There must be some recoup there for Telstra to spend that money up front, though.
Telstra, the state government paying it's a grant, so it's
Telstra get paid by the state.
the state puts the funding in, not Telstra.
Yeah, Telstra's not putting a dollar into it.
So if they're not going to get anything back, what are they doing?
Oh, they'll get connectivity or whatever, but they're not putting their money into it. It's the state putting their money in via.
Telstra just gets the fees on the internet usage and data usage.
Okay.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, so that funding covers supply and install?
So it's only it's a two-part funding. It's an expression of interest as stage one, which is what we put in for. Then the state will come back. If you're successful at stage one, you'll have to put in a full business case then. So we'll see if they. It's we'll wait to see what happens. The state's reply.
Is that, through you, Mr. Mayor, is that every household,
Every water meter.
every water meter? And no cost to the residents?
No,
No cost to the council at this point in time?
would it be not to put it in? There'll be ongoing fees, the automatic reading. But cheaper than reading, someone going out reading the meters. Cost.
The only benefit I see out of it is what we've talked about, punitive measures coming in, which we don't currently apply anyway, but after you've used the water, it's no good to help you with water saving. I didn't know about the flood have gone in either, but the only benefit that I see at all from it is it would allow us to inform our communities in real time how much water they're using in an attempt to be, educate the community about water-wise practices and stop wastage as it's happening rather than make them pay for it months after the fact. I see no practical benefit from it. Yes, there's a saving in terms of labour, definitely, if you go and read them, and risk of injury and failure of a water meter, but these ones will fail too. And the only benefit I get is the education component for our communities and also for ourselves, especially for ourselves actually, more informed. Our current water meter usage is irrelevant for anything other than ensuring we don't exceed the town allocation or our property allocation, whatever it is, because it's delivered too late to make any noticeable change. Whereas this, if it's, as Brett said, if it works, we'll get up to the minute water usage. Reservoir drops suddenly. Someone in council can very quickly look at every water meter and say, right, well, there, that's where it's gone.
Previous Mayor, is there the opportunity for the residents to have live?
Yes.
Yeah, so they could actually maybe graph what they're using and they can organise themselves to reduce their water usage. Not just us giving them the data, they could get their own data.
And one of the benefits was, if they got a water leak, they'll know straight away if they're monitoring their phone. They can see straight away that they're using too much water.
Right, anything further?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say thank you to all our staff in all areas for the fantastic job they've done over the year. I'd particularly like to mention the crew that's working on the Barkey Arrowmark Road at the moment. It's been an enormous job and critical job that we had to finish before Christmas. They've got every man and his dog out there trying to finish that job by next week. I just working very long hours, and it'll ensure that we are eligible for that Tranche 3 funding next year.
Which puts us at the absolute pinnacle of project delivery for state government across the state. We were one of less than a handful that completed Tranche 1 on time, and now to be within 2 days of Tranche 2 being done is colossal. Which means that we safeguard our access to another couple of $1 million worth of work, which gets wearing them out, but their dedication, I think I commented on that in other pieces I did as well. I echo the thoughts of Brett, colossal. Nothing further for Brett? Can I have somebody move that we receive the CIC? Councillor People, second, and Councillor Arthur. Those in favour? Carried 7-0. Does anyone wish to raise a question about anything in particular there? Does anyone want an explanation about what 8 really means? Well, I'll rephrase that. I do. I was hoping to cover it, but Brett, can you please explain to us exactly what that work care bank guarantee means, please? It's a little bit too complicated for me.
So we operate council's insurances are under a mutual scheme, which means all councils contribute to the scheme. We own the scheme. We are liable for any claims that come out of that scheme. In terms of workers' compensation, it's a separate scheme called Work Care, Local Government Work Care, LGW. And that letter is the amount of our guarantee for that scheme. So if the scheme had a massive claim or went broke, that's how much council would be liable to contribute. To the scheme. It's never been called upon.
Right, thank you. That makes sense to me. Any other items that makes rudimentary sense, Brett? I think I'm sure that's a simplistic way of explaining it, but that'll do me. I understand now what we got there. Anything further about any of those other 8 items?
Mr. Mayor, you had a conflict.
But I agree with the
So
council
that's
has gathered
stayed.
permission to stay.
Yeah.
We don't even thank you for that. All good? Right, thank you. So that skips about 165 pages. 150. Can I just fair warning, Councillor Hanson? Can I have somebody move that we receive the planning and development report? Councillor Plum moves, seconds. Councillor Arthur, those in favour? 6-0. Questions, councillors?
Not a question, Mr. Mayor, but just a comment that the annual total for 2021 at this stage looks good, shall we say? That there's development work going on. Yeah. Councillor Rick.
I got a question, and I'm happy for it to be a question on notice or direction, however you may see fit, just with respect to the draft planning scheme and the fact that there's still a couple of areas outlined there requiring work specifically around the cultural heritage and flooding that's been provided to us. It's probably only been provided recently. Can we just get an update on what the January meeting for real planning if need be, or internally, what the time frame is around the finalisation of those two issues for the resubmission or the revised draft. And really, personally, I'm very, very keen to see that new planning scheme implemented as soon as possible. There's, notwithstanding the conversation we've had already today about some advanced economic development opportunities, it's just, there's so many elements of the new planning scheme that will make planning approvals a better, simpler process with more clarity and more uniformity across the council area. That's currently not the case. And 14 years post-amalgamation is way too long. It's not in any way blaming our officers here at all. It's just an observation. It's too long for us to be operating under 3 separate planning schemes. In fact, if such as the calling, probably subject to the fact that we've got a dated planning scheme. So if we can just have some more clarity around the timeliness of that, happy to make further representations to the planning minister if that's required around expediting the final elements of the approval before we have public consultation. Any more questions for the planning report? Council people? Right. Thank you. If you'd like somebody to move the economic development report, let be received, please. Councillor Plum, Councillor Arthur, those in favour? 7-0. Any further questions to your briefing, councillors, on this last week? None? Right.
Do I have a mover for 3.3.5? Councillor Gleeson moves and Councillor Plum seconds. So there's a request for a grant from the Alfred Jockey Club.
So, Deputy Mayor, on any private works the council conducts, we actually had 25% surcharge on the cost. 10% is the GST component, 15% is our profit component. So we're doing some private works at the racecourse in Alpha, and obviously charged the Jockey Club for those works. They've paid the account. Now they've come back to us and asked, can they have a refund of the 15% surcharge, and on those past works, but also on future works at the race club.
Councillor Gleeson.
Through Deputy Mayor, the invoice hasn't been written out very good, because it would be good to see the hours and the hourly rate of the machine hire, but they are requesting to take 15% off the 10,329. Is that that's what they're asking?
Yes.
And then also underneath that, the council has received a request, Private Works. Further costs have been incurred since this invoice was issued, so there's obviously more invoices out there. This is only one.
There's more costs, but we haven't invoiced for them yet.
Can I ask a question, Greg? Yes. So the 15%, or is it 25% that's added onto their bill is actually profit for us?
Well, 10% is GST, so we have to charge that.
And 15% is profit.
50% is profit margin.
And so if we were to drop that off, we would still be recuperating our costs.
So it's worked out on cost plus 25%. So if you reduced it back, yes, it would cover the costs exactly.
What about the 10% GST?
Well, that gets paid
They're
to the
only-
tax office.
They're only asking for 15% though, aren't they?
Well, it just, the letter, you've got the letter on page
Yeah.
161, it just says, waive the surcharge,
15%, not,
but it doesn't actually say. But when I spoke to them, they just said the profit margin is what they were asking for. And they have asked for, not only on this invoice, but any future work as well. It's up to council, but you can either say no to the whole lot, say yes to just this invoice, or make it an ongoing arrangement. The
Through Deputy Mayor. Do we know what I don't know what the hourly rate is, the current hourly rate for machine hire. Is it very difficult to find that or not? Whatever it'd be profitable. You wouldn't be hiring a vehicle out for nothing.
Paula's got the system open.
And further to that question, what I was asking quite a while ago about private works, why does the council charge an extra 15%? Is that to discourage private work or not?
Always been, Jenny, has it always been 15%?
No, it was always less than that, and the reason is because it doesn't take, if you charge it out by the higher fees that are in our system, it doesn't take into account the on-costs, so council were losing on private works. So that's the reason behind it. So it doesn't look like that one's been costed on the higher rates, it's just been costed on actual costs, which probably isn't politically correct in terms of how we're supposed to charge for private works, which isn't planned.
It's $156 an hour plus one cost for just the machine, to put the labour on top of that.
For a grader, 140M grader, $156 per hour wet hire.
Draw hole,
Wet hire.
no operator.
That's
156,
it,
no
that's it,
operator.
That's including your 15% plus GST.
No, that's why we have to put that's why the profit margin's there, is to cover the on-costs, because council were losing drastically on private works when they're only just adding on GST. Based on how you're supposed to charge, which is based on the higher rate of the plan, not what the actual cost of the system of this plan used.
Through you, Brett, does this happen in Aramac and Barcaldine as well? Like, or is it just a one-off?
Well, Barcaldine is slightly different. The council owns the race course. Aramac, not sure what.
Yeah, no, we don't do, if we're doing grading or anything like that, that's private contractor, race club just does that. They organise it.
The Alpha Jockey Club has received a grant from Queensland Racing to do this work. So that, if you look at the costs that I can see here, there was 3,800 in wages, 3,800 in plant, grader hire from Hastings. Plus there's been some diesel as well. 2,800. 700 in diesel.
So through you, Madam Mayor, did you say we've hired an additional grader to do it?
We had a grader on hire in Alpha, Hastings, so
And
that
we
grader
utilised
moved
that.
up to the race course and they got charged out to that job.
So this is private work, but the other clubs generally, if they are, this is not in-kind support, this is they've ordered some private works and
Well,
that's,
yes, that's right.
so it's
And I'm not sure how much more work has to be done.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm against it on a couple of issues. One, there appear to be a sizable grant attached to the works. Two, I'm against asking for it post facto, and I'm hesitant to do it on works when we don't know how much it is and how much it's going to be. I'm sorry.
thank you, Councillor Arthur. Councillor Gleeson.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Arthur took everything I was going to say. I don't agree to approve on all the, on everything that was just said.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Does someone want to make a motion on this? Will we just leave that there, but council say, does someone want to move the motion to say that council does not agree or agree?
It's Councillor Gleeson's motion.
Probably sits with Councillor Gleeson and Councillor Plum if they're still happy with.
Are you happy with the wording? It's Councillor Gleeson, that leave the wording as it is, but just take out agrees.
We'd have to change. Because we're going to agree to provide that with the grant towards the upgrade of the Alpha race course. That's not.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But that's what it was, agrees or does not agree.
That's not correct. Happy with that word.
Just leave it in place.
What do you want to leave the last bit, just put towards the upgrade and finish after race course?
Oh, I'm happy with that because the letter and that was with respect to the surcharge on the private works.
So would you like to speak for that motion, Councillor Gleeson?
I'll move the motion, but it's not a grant, is it? It's not a grant, you call it a grant?
It is under the Local Government Act, it's
Okay.
called a grant to community organisations.
Deputy Mayor?
So before we proceed, through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, does that mean that request should come through with our grant, like following our grant protocol? So, well, that's another reason I'm against it then, because from what we've been shown, that hasn't been followed either.
So is there anyone that wants to speak against that motion? I think that it's a little bit hard when we don't really know the extent of the work in the future as well. We don't really know what we're agreeing to put aside for that the club as well. So I might as well put that motion to the vote. Those for the motion not to agree. 5-0.
On reflection, Mr. CEO, the wording probably could have been better, as in agree not to provide, as opposed to not agree, because that sounds,
Tidy it up.
yeah, well, because that sounds like we don't agree whereas we do agree, but we agree not to. Sorry, it took me a little while to process. My apologies to the chamber.
Annual report. Comments before we move to adoption?
Mr. Mayor, I'll just, Councillor Gleeson did raise an issue about COIs in the Act, I can't find anything that says anything about that report being ordinary business.
Thank you.
No.
No, thank you. No, we've all got to walk out.
So I rang the solicitors and I stumped them because they couldn't give me an answer. But except to say that the legislation very clearly says that council must adopt an annual report within 1 month of receiving. Within 1 month of receiving the audited financial statements, and that the annual report must include a whole list of items. And the solicitor said, well, because they're already things that have happened, you're not changing, you're not voting to change anything, you're accepting what's happened. But that was the best answer I could get out of it.
Probably doesn't necessarily give me the confidence that we probably were looking for.
We wanted to defer that to later in the meeting.
Yes.
Obtain more information, Mr.
I
Mayor.
would think that John Martinovic might be able to give us an answer on that, would he? He's our Director for Local Government. What is the next agenda item? Cultural policy. I'll leave the chamber and ring him now. Don't defer it too much longer or we're going to run out of things to talk about. Councillor Rogers, you have the chair. Because we may all have to express an interest, if that's the case, which I just can't believe.
I've lost my.
John.
241.
241 in the agenda.
Yeah, I had, for some reason, some of the pages were blank.
That's from the annual report.
To 60, yeah. Got it. So, item 3.3.7, cultural policy. So we did discuss the cultural policy in, was it the last meeting or the one before? And it's gone out to community consultation. So has anyone got any questions or anything to say about the final draft?
A draft was sent to councillors. It's gone out to public consultation. There has been some feedback from the public, and this is the final policy for adoption.
So I'm assuming that the yellow highlighted sections were what the community brought up.
Yes.
Correct? Thank you.
Yes.
Is everyone happy to adopt that, or do we want to discuss it a little bit further Move to adopt that.
Oh, through you, Madam Mayor, I was relatively happy with the previous policy, but I think some of the extra comments in that are improving on it. So thanks to the community for that. So I'm happy to move that we adopt.
Councillor Arthur's adopted it.
Second
Councillor Hanson, seconds. All those in favour? 6-0. I've got a
Three, isn't there?
And something else.
Are we better to move on to,
If we're going without Sean, there's not going to
We don't have a,
plus Mr CEO, does that mean you then lead the meeting with the mayor and deputy mayor?
there's no meeting.
Procedural.
No,
Yeah, we're leaving.
we're leaving the room too, so.
There's three of us leaving.
Four. Remember?
I'm Tony Gary, leaving.
Oh, Tom's not going.
Not for this, not for that one, I think.
Because I think the drinking water audit might, I'll take this opportunity to adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes.
Why don't we tell them we're up to 5.2 or something when you come back in?
Meeting adjourned for a few minutes.
Yes.
Right,
It's
councillors.
supposed to be paid first.
For those of you who were concerned about
Ourselves or close associates mentioned in the annual report.
you need to articulate, as is the case for all conflicts of interest, how by participating in this you receive a benefit. So the underpinning test for conflict of interest is a received benefit for you or your employer, personally. Yeah. For anything that the decision is about.
But the legislation says a contract or pertaining to a contract. It's gone away from the benefit or loss.
That's right, but once again, is there a contract in this decision that has a conflict with you personally or with a close associate?
Well, in my respect, the close associate as my employer has entered into a contract with council to supply.
Yeah, but this decision, the annual report, how does adopting that
Yeah,
provide a benefit to you or him?
I didn't see it
No, but that's the test.
originally as, yeah.
That's the test you need to apply. Where is the benefit to either you or your close associate from the decision or the report that you're receiving at the time? So in this case, yes, you mentioned it a number of times. But where by adopting that do you benefit or a close associate of you benefit from the decision?
It's already been gone.
So you only declare where there is a benefit to you as a result of the decision that's being made.
Mr Mayor, I wasn't even aware of what, and I'm still not aware of really what it was.
But
I just
it's
saw
probably
one
immaterial
there.
what it is.
Well, easier if I walk.
No, but it's probably immaterial what it's for. Does adopting this report provide you a benefit? Then there's no conflict of interest. You or a close associate, then that's the test for every CLI put in the department. You give me some examples that I'm not going to repeat because they mind-boggle like that. But I will repeat one of them. It's very explicit and clear. If you're, as a councillor or a coach at the local soccer club, and the local soccer club's just a volunteer, and they have an application for a grant in front of council, you don't have a conflict of interest because you're personally not benefiting. If you're a paid employee of the club, you would.
Or on the executive,
Yes, or on the executive.
but as a volunteer.
But as a voluntary coach, you've got no benefit from that club getting that grant.
Yeah, and that's how I look at it with the volunteer stuff I do with the seniors and the juniors and at the Bar of the Race Club. There's no,
That's right. If they paid you to be their FAO, or they paid you to do, yeah. So one of the reasons I volunteer my referee. So,
Volunteer or paid?
well, there is a difference. If you're paid to do something,
You're receiving
Mr. Mayor, there was no
consideration.
need for you to let the rest of them up again, because you're not paid.
I'm the trustee, so that's executive level. I'm the owner of I'm actually the owner of the race course. So yes,
So president.
materially I could be benefited because I'm one of three. There's three others, sorry. I'm one of four trustees. So yeah, the Act's pretty clear about trusteeships as ownership. So yeah, I'm not, it's not that I'm a member of the Jockey Club, which I am. I'm actually a trustee. That changes that.
Yes. And if you're in the executive group, like the president, secretary, treasurer,
They're a conflict of interest, yes.
but if you're a member, no.
A volunteer.
Or a volunteer. So in this respect, because no councillor benefits from this decision, then there is no COIs.
unless we have a strong conviction opposite to that. But that's the.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably problematic if a councillor was to develop that strong because it could hamper the ability of the local government to do its job. If councillors started walking on COIs that were not real, like one would not be real if someone declared it here, because no one benefits from this decision. It's a required process from the legislation. It's only reporting what's already happened. It makes no difference to decisions that are yet to occur. So, the annual report is in front of you. Any questions about any elements of it? You have it amended, page 9.
That answered two queries, Mr. Mayor.
So that was just a reallocation from the second column to the third column for 2 lines. Any further questions? Do I have a resolution to adopt? Councillor Plum, seconded Councillor Hanson. Those in favour?
Mr Mayor, I've still got a question, please, sorry.
Yep.
I just need to ask, Brett, expenses incurred there for me, what's that? I know some of me travel.
Travel, accommodation, and it was the attendance at LGAQ State Conference last year.
Thank you.
Because you were the third person, we're allowed to, within membership, within the membership.
Yep.
Third, so that incurred an extra cost.
Okay.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, I assume that's what my expenses were.
No. Your expenses are less than one person attending LGAQ, wouldn't they be?
So it could be uniforms, it could be
Oh, okay.
Did you attend too, didn't you?
Yeah, but I'm in
One of the
membership.
two.
Oh,
Yeah. I got to vote.
there may be accommodation. I can check that out.
No.
Well, there would have been accommodation at conference,
Yeah.
even though the attendance was included,
No,
accommodation's not.
that's what I just sort of assumed it was all associated.
You
with
drove down, didn't you?
And I didn't plan it back then.
What I mean is there was no flights or...
No, I could have gone on the council ticket, so that's why I didn't want it.
All right, any further questions, Councillor Pekin? No. Those in favour? 7-0. Done cultural policy, was it adopted?
Yes.
Half of us are leaving now, is that right?
Yep.
Any questions from those few of us who remain about the personal protection appearance policy, or the other way around, appearance of protection? Is there a mover? Plum, seconder? Arthur? The chief change here, councillors, is from 3 to 5. Any more debate? Those in favour?
Mr Mayor, it is. The allocation has increased to 5 sets.
Correct, from 3.
Thank you.
Well, I should say it's probably returned to 5. It was at 5, it was cut to 3. The most recent review of this has suggested it goes back to 5.
Thank you.
Those in favour? 4-0. Invite them back, but I'm not waiting. Can I have somebody move the tender for drinking water quality? Oh, okay. So just a bit of background information. This is just us physically endorsing the payment out of council because we are the banker for the Rapid Water and Sewage Alliance. So we pay this and then invoice the respective local governments who are participating in it. So you'll note that Councillor O'Neill from Baku and I were the endorsers of this at the strategic group meeting. This is just a procedural resolution to release the funds. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Plum, seconded Councillor Peoples. Those in favour, motion carried. 7-0. Tender for, sorry, Councillor Arthur. Tender bitumen supply Buckle and Aramac Road. The tender summary assessment there in front of you. Any questions with the recommendation to award to Boral? Being none, do I have a mover? Councillor Peoples, Councillor Plum. Those in favour, 6-0. Thank you. Councillor Arthur may return. 3311, Corporate Risk Register. Councillors, we had a significant workshop in the development of this last week. Is there any further commentary around any of the material in this Corporate Risk Register before we adopt it so that we can move to the next phase of the process, which is the big enterprise risk management? Mover. Councillor Plum, Councillor Arthur seconds. Those in favour, 7-0. Audit Committee 3312. Can I have somebody move that we receive the Audit Committee report? Councillor Plum, seconded Councillor Rogers. Those in favour, carried. Questions for the Audit Committee? I just want to note the point that was raised by Audit Committee member Greg Evans about the work being done on outstanding recommendations being closed out. It's always good when we can report back to our external auditors that we've or we gain their approval to close out outstanding items. So that's good to see. It's good that the Audit Committee is maintaining focus on those key areas. Any further questions?
Mr Mayor, there will be an audit report come to the next council meeting once we receive that management report.
Okay. Any further questions for the Audit Committee? 3313. Local Government Sustainability Framework. Councillors, we've discussed this ad nauseum in briefing sessions in the development of this. It's a detailed and complex report. I think the key thing to take from this is that Council, through our Finance Officer and Acting CEO, were well represented on the working group. There's been a number of proposals and counter offers made to the matrices and metrics, that were proposed by the state as alternates. Quite significantly, the vast majority of the targets as they are presented by the state actually, in their current form, result in a favourable sustainability recommendation for Buckle. So I guess what underpins these ratios is something that's probably more reflective of the status of a council such as Buckle. Notwithstanding, there's a lot of commentary, I won't call it guff, but it's close to it, around some of the real mechanics here. The key thing that our council, there's probably 3 key things that I saw that we strongly objected to. One was Brett was trying to get rid of the operating surplus ratio because of its relevance. I definitely didn't want the state of this report reflects it to use a ratio that divided debt by population, because population in no way reflects the capacities of a council to repay. You know, we don't tax per population, we tax per rateable notice. And the idea of negative targets was raised by your council last, like Brett Farm matters, being it's a bit of an oddity within the system, whilst not being blind to the reason why it was listed as negative. But we still got to have a sustainability future that is positive, not negative. So anyway, that's the detailed submission as you see there in front of you. As I've said numerous times about anything involving Western Queensland Alliance, it's very complex it's a complex grouping of councils with not always similar situations, both from a financial sustainability point of view, population basis, rateable businesses. So this document probably is a good catch-all for a common position on sustainability. Questions? And by the way, it's already been submitted.
And the state, it's only a submission, so the state can ignore it or whatever they want. So.
It was submitted last week.
And other regions may have different submissions or different ideas.
Quite sure they will. Councillor Arthur, any questions?
No, it was just another basic comment that it looks like something like the Duckworth-Lewis system that is hard to understand, and at the end of it, not sure whether people will agree with the decision that comes out of it.
I think
to use a cricket analogy at this time of year.
Unlike the former submission that we did in this space, which was around the Federal Assistant Methodology Review, this one's going to have limited immediate impact on us other than our auditable position. The FAG's Methodology Review is a very real impact on our bottom line. This is only a review on things that affect how people view us, not the actual situation as it is. So that's why to me it's relatively, it's important, but it's not proven.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, how difficult would it be to, like, retrospectively apply these ratios with the data that we have in our annual reports?
Yeah, they have done that through the process for the last 5 years.
So that 5-year rolling average, we can work with that. If this goes ahead and goes in place, we can get right.
That's right. Also, we move 3313, please. Sorry, Brett. Councillor Plum, seconder. Councillor Hanson, CEO, sorry.
I was just going to say that in this year's financial statements, we actually meet the operating surplus ratio criteria for the first time. The new criteria, not the old ones. We will have three lights for the existing ratios on their new criteria.
Those in favour? 7-0. 3314 LDMP and our activation guideline. Councillors, this plan has already been endorsed by the Local Disaster Management Group at its meeting on Friday last week. And the activation goal, that was to come here.
We'd already done the agenda at that stage, Mr. Mayor.
We'll just delete from that the resolution, we'll just do adopts the plan. The guideline is a working document for the LDMG, and it will be, it's an activation plan that could need to change rapidly. And if it's a formal document of council, we'd have to go through the whole process or operate under a delegated authority. So it's best that we just, what we're asking you to do here is be aware of our activation guideline, and as we change it, the LDMG will make sure council is aware of it. But the key criteria here for adoption that's formally required is the actual plan. Any questions about the plan?
Mr. Mayor, page 381 of the agenda, so the Mutteborough subgroup, our sub-chair group details are missing.
Councillor Hanson.
Yep, and then that's 182.
Sorry, but I'm working off the actual plan page.
Oh, sorry.
45 in the plan.
Yep.
Yeah, so the Marlborough subgroup chair is missing, and then you are still the Alpha subgroup,
Yep. Well, that should be Councillor Arthur.
correct? Again, probably being picky, at the end, the acronyms and that, ideally, could they be in alphabetical order? They do jump around a
So
bit.
there'll be a review of this, not this exact section, you mean the glossary?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of things we've got to add in there that we weren't quite ready with. Predominantly the state emergency service distance reporting chain. So we'll adopt with amendments, please do. But probably the two chief changes here is one, it's been streamlined, so that decisions are more operational as the disaster evolves. And the other one is the elimination of the Barcaldine subgroup. Just simply to eliminate duplication of the process here. Basically, it's the same people that sit on the subgroup, walking from one room to the other, from an subgroup plan to a main group plan meeting. So that's the chief reasons there. Right, any more questions? Can I have somebody move that we adopt the plan with amendments as noted? Councillor Gleeson, thank you. So, Councillor Arthur. Questions, comments, debate? All in favour? 7-0. Tender truck replacement 3315. Detailed report there about the extended process that's happened here. Any debate? Questions about the report? Very detailed tender evaluation, I think. Do I have a mover? Councillor Plum, seconder. Councillor Arthur, debate. Those in favour? Against? 6-1. We call this 3316 Warren Bar. This is the conversation that was held last week with Real Planning, and in terms of us providing to government a response after their decision to call in. We haven't had a chance to meet. The decision to call in was made whilst we're in this, to give notice to call in was made whilst we're in this chamber in November, and obviously we're back in today, but the submission for this had to be last week. So, as was drafted the letter there, as was consulted with you last week, and then attached some individual responses to issues that were raised within the call-in, proposed call-in notice, and then additionally to that, because we expanded very heavily upon the highly detailed infrastructure agreement, and we wish to make the state aware of that. So, do I have any questions about what this is about? None? Do I have a mover? Councillor Arthur, seconded Councillor Peebles. Those in favour? 7-0. 3317. Barcaldine Rec Park operational plan. This is also, as has been workshopped and community consulted, there's some significant detail in water monitoring and other elements. I'm going to go into summarisation of it. I'll go to questions.
Mr. Mayor, the noise assessment that we got was dated the 2017. Has that been updated with respect to the lowering of the bank on the eastern side?
So because the noise assessment, the noise assessment study states that we need to measure the noise in specified locations to determine what the noise is and to monitor that noise. So until they actually have a boat on the water making a noise, you're not going to know what that is. So they've identified specific points in town.
Yeah.
And then from that, so I suppose it's an ongoing, it's a living document in some respects in that by monitoring the noise, then you can adjust hours and size of boats if need be. But they've made some assumptions and recommended hours. So the main issue that they identified is noise at night. So outside your normal, construction noise hours. But basically we won't be operating in those hours anyway, in terms of motorised craft. So, I think they talked about, at 10 o'clock at night. So we won't be allowing any motorised craft after sunset.
But that is with a bank, their assumptions are based on 2 boats with the bank at a certain height, which is now half a metre lower. Well, I'm nowhere near a sound engineer, but I would think that the sound has a likelihood to travel further. And some of them are borderline with those assumptions at the higher bank for some of those locations. I'm just not sure whether the operational plan goes far enough with respect to noise. That's my concern.
Any further thoughts on noise?
The other part about noise is that it's the repetitive nature of the noise. It's not just how loud it is, but how often.
Because I think it's one of the key indicators for the noise is that there's no complaint. I don't see that. There will be a complaint about the noise.
Even if it's frivolous.
Correct.
There's noise about every other facility in town.
Barking dogs, Mr. Mayor.
Events at the showground, PA systems.
Some of the trucks on the highway.
It's written there. It's written in the topography of the ground. Within 1 metre of resolution study area has been used to generate site used for particular noise levels. It's got topography. That word I can't say it, topography. So that's height. It's got it written there. So your question is 2017 models. Is it going to weigh up to?
Well, the assumptions made in that noise assessment was that the bank was up here and the projection of the noise from the boat was a metre above it. So here. So we've now lowered this eastern side bank, which is the predominant residential side of the ski park, and one would think that the noise has a higher propensity to travel, seeing that physical structure is not there
now. Proposed remedies?
short of a sound barrier, 10 years worth of growing trees.
I mean,
I just don't,
in
it
terms
may
of-
never happen. It's a little bit like the
But,
potential
sorry.
flooding. Until it happens, we don't really know. But
Sorry, councillor, I was more referring to potential for remedying the noise evaluation study.
Is it difficult and timely for them to remodel that with the lower bank level? Based on their current assumptions. And again, like their assumption is 2 boats. So if there's 3 boats or 4 boats on there, seeing we don't really have a limit.
But what is the purpose? Like the ultimate aim of the noise study is how much noise do you allow? Like the study can tell you anything, but it's up to council about to approve a certain level of noise.
And how are we doing that in this? We're not, that's not referenced, is it? What is an acceptable degree of noise?
Mr. Mayor, one of the goals of the noise study was also to comply with the development application, wasn't it? So it was to comply with that and also to
7.2 from memory.
and to work out how much noise would be acceptable. But I think really with the noise, we won't know until it starts to be operational how much noise is actually going to occur and what the complaints will be. So I guess that once we have some idea of that, we might need to change those hours, but at this point.
I think the DA called for a flood study to be undertaken and for a noise evaluation and measures, I'm paraphrasing, but measures in relation to both to be introduced. If the noise study doesn't actually tell us anything, then how compliant are we in terms of do we have a valid DA?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, wouldn't we be governed under the noise regulations of building construction safety hours anyway? They'd have a noise limit allowable. We'd be governed by that, I'm sure.
I don't know.
From what I looked into, it's up to us to say whether there's stuff in the Environmental Act, I think it is. But basically it's up to us to have a local bylaw. It's handed back to local government with respect to noise. And I don't know whether we have I couldn't find a policy that says that 40 decibels is too loud, 39 is okay.
At what time of day?
At what time of day, whether it's residential, rural residential, industrial, construction, there may be other guidelines.
So under the noise study, it has recommended criteria. So noise limits, dwellings, outdoors, acoustic quality, daytime 7 AM to 6 PM 50 decibels, evening 50, night 40. And background creep, which I'm not sure what that means, but
So we can't use a chainsaw there. Yeah, a chainsaw decibels 59.
this is that
You could on
house.
site, but not at the area where
Gets
it,
to the house, it could be,
At the closest dwelling.
well, they've
which I think
not
one's
houses.
identified in New Street as one of the closer.
So we've identified 5 houses that we should be measuring as the noise. So basically we need to, the noise limit, the recommended noise limit is 50 decibels. At the dwelling.
At the receiver point.
Really, Mr. Mayor, is it easy to measure that?
Noise
If they're just, we have.
So then, with the targets that are set, is the only way of knowing, there's 2 choices. We either proceed with the hope that we don't see them, or we require an updated study with the engineering alterations to model whether that's likely to happen, because if it is in that event, then we would need to undertake other mitigation if we look likely to exceed the recommendations, unless you choose to change the recommendations. I see that probably the only two ways forward.
If we, Mr Mayor, if we go and ask it to be revisited, it will be at a considerable cost, I imagine, to do all the homework again.
Well, there will be cost. I mean, a lot of the data's there. It's probably a matter of them changing some assumptions around height. Also the depth of water. They've got to work off the maximum depth, because as you come down from the maximum,
That has a potential, from my point of view, if the water level's lower and the bank is higher, you would reasonably assume, unless you had a taller structure this side, that it bounces off.
so they need to understand what the engineering changes have done to both the maximum water level and obviously the maximum bank height's 400 mil lower for a certain section of the bank.
Which unfortunately is the town side.
Through you, Mr Mayor, would there be, like, I don't really think that I'd like to go and do a whole lot more engineering. Because when they do that, it's just their assumption. Can't we, if we've got a noise meter, can we not just measure it and just see what the levels are? If they're above, then we need to adjust our hours, or like if we've already got noise meters, can't we just measure it the first month, work out what the noise is actually going to be, because it might be below the levels that are acceptable. We don't know that. Or maybe a test, but if you don't want to open it to motors at the moment, there are people with boats in town that we could test the noise before we open to motorised vehicles.
I'm in your hands, councillors. Someone may have a third option.
Mr Mayor, the resolution, you've got the allow commencement of the activities of Rec Park. Did we speak last week of the signage must be there before they, so should that be put in there as well as a up-to-date sound, monitor the sound?
Well, the monitoring the sound's already in the DA. That's written in.
Yeah.
Unless you want to do a new study.
No, I don't need to say that. I think we should.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to just move the motion to adopt the Rec Park operational plan, and then let's see what happens down the track with regard to noise, and if we've got to come back and readdress it, let's do so then. But I think we're adopting the Rec Park operational plan so that we can allow some commencement of activities at the Rec Park.
I think that operational plan, councillor Plum, actually calls for the installation of signage.
There is a signage plan in as part
Yeah,
of
so that's part of it, rather than clouding the resolution.
Yeah.
You've moved that, councillor, so I'm now the formal mover. Is there a
I'll
seconder?
second it.
Councillor Rogers, but I'm not ready to rush to the vote. Formal debate. Councillor Gleeson.
Mr Mayor, following up on the signs, it's got written here, outstanding items not essential to commence of operations signage. Well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that if there's no signs, it shouldn't be operational.
Yeah, sorry, I probably just worded that, the sign, yeah, we can't start without signage. So we're waiting on that.
Yeah, because it's in the plan. So the material there is superseded by what we're adopting, where it says it has to, the plan needs to look like that. For further debate?
Mr Mayor, I just have an issue where we've got a plan now and one of the criteria is no complaints from affected persons due to noise emissions. And I think the majority of the room is quite confident that. And what is the follow on from that non-conformance?
Are you proposing an amendment that we remove that line? It's your document. If you can remove that line, that non-conformance line, to no to minimal, or define minimal even.
Which page are you reading, councillor?
Page 65 of the plan and it's 538 of the agenda. So it's Table 4, Noise Management Plan Operations Performance Criteria number 1, no complaints from affected persons due to noise emissions. Is that better, no substantiated or no significant?
Because further down mitigation it says record and investigate complaints.
Yeah, but we're saying our performance criteria is none. Not minimal, not.
So is it a suggestion that you go no complaints from affected persons due to noise emissions that do not exceed the plan's
Tolerances
Tolerance.
or I guess that's better.
Well, if it's exceeding that, then the plan's failing, isn't it? So then we've got to adjust why is it exceeding that and add additional mitigation perhaps. So I'm being cognizant of the fact that someone who's a bigger expert on noise than I am has said there's a tolerance level. We're going to get complaints from people, but if it doesn't exceed what the expert in noise is considering acceptable and we endorse today, so the complaint then is, but if we get a complaint that's substantiated as in it's exceeding, they've got evidence, or we provide evidence that it exceeds that, then we move to an alternative mitigation. Councillor Peebles and Councillor Rogers, are you happy for the plan to be amended on the same lines as what Councillor Arthur is suggesting?
Yep. So
Collectively, we're contributing to the discussion.
Yep.
So, he wants to write hard copy on that. So the no complaints from affected persons due to noise emissions that do not exceed accepted tolerance levels at identified locations. Councillor Arthur, would that agree?
Yep.
Order effect. So
Yeah.
Councillor Mover and second, happy there? Any further discussion? Move the mover to sum up.
just the question that Tom raised about,
Councillor Gleeson, that would be.
Councillor Gleeson raised about the signs. Do we need something in the motion too to say that on completion of any outstanding signage or whatever you need to deliver it, you just said you need the signs to be there, I suppose we need to take that into this.
Well, isn't that in here?
Or is it
Through you,
just-
Mr Mayor, I don't see that the resolution necessarily means that once it's passed, the rec park is open. Like, there's still
That's why I
some
didn't
box
put-
ticking as part of that plan.
That's why I didn't put council over the rec park as a resolution.
Right, understand.
Including
Still
implementing
need
water
to
quality
complete-
management. We'd have to do our first test.
Complete all these activities now
Yep.
to allow it to
And I guess until such time that we approve and happy with that plan, the requirements of that now start.
That's right, they're not relevant until we say they are. You had to come up today with a different sign, or we would have had to do it. Those in favour?
I'm conscious of time, Mr Mayor.
7-0.
Although some of those items are a large number of pages in that agenda.
341. So, man, do you monitor us externally, or does another officer sneak you advice that you need to be here? Just turn up. Most opportune times for your report. Can I have somebody please move that we receive the financial report? Councillor Hanson, second Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour? 7-0. Not a good month for cash, so, man.
Mr. Mayor, has improved from last month. We had about 8.6 million, excluding the restricted component at bank.
Yep.
We're up to 10.2 now. So it's because of some claims coming in through TMR and recoverable works income.
For the last couple of months too, we've had our meeting very early in the month, haven't we? So we're actually seeing pretty well the close of the previous month with none of the November money received, or none of, in this case. This is our December meeting, but it's the 7th. We've got to compile these reports on about the 1st or 2nd.
It is 2nd of December, Mr. Mayor.
So, those 1-year rates have dropped again, month on month. Good. In fact, that, like 3 there, once you take them out of the equation, that's pretty good. Officers, are you worried about the 190 currents? They're obviously outside the discount period, but is that normal? Is that okay? Nothing to be surprised about. All right, I'm good. Further questions, councillors? Councillor Arthur?
Mr Mayor,
I was looking at him, I saw him going there, I didn't just instantly.
no, I'm pretty sure I've got a tell.
You've got it. Yeah, no, there is a telltale.
The education bursaries,
Yeah.
have we done anything with those this year? Or, I know it was, 12 months ago that we did the first one.
Well, that's coincided with the supposed West Tech that got deferred.
And we are working on this.
Yeah, okay, no. It's a question I've meant to ask multiple other times in different arenas, and it's just, as I flick through it, jump out of me.
We did, yeah, there was a bit of a delay. GBA has agreed to sponsor again. And I'm not sure whether we've received replies from other sponsors. I'm not sure what happened at West Tech meeting. They were requested as well. But yes, there will be another round.
No, that's all right, yeah.
Further finance questions or reports?
Mr. Mayor, just point out, we did get approval finally for our emergent flood damage from back in January this year.
Excellent.
So we're getting $1.7 million.
When's that likely to kick in?
Has it been received, Judy? It's been approved but not received, so.
So that's for work that's already been undertaken. We've already done it, and now we're just going to...
Emergency work that we did back in January. And yeah, it's taken a while, but it's been approved.
So, man, just analysing the sustainability graph, the chief reason that, even though we've improved cash month on month, as you said, that we didn't see an upward tick in that, would you agree is linked to the fact that we just keep drawing down that flood damage value? So even though our cash at bank is better, the flood damage that stops that sustainability matrix ticking up a month?
Well, Mr. Mayor, it has improved, and it is like close to 3 months, but because of the accuracy of that graph, I have to keep it to 2 months.
I don't know,
Yeah,
I'm
but-
not knocking it, even if it was 2.99999, I'd still see it at 2
But
to 3.
we definitely have improved there. It's $1 million more in cash over there. So it has increased the pay period as well.
Right, further questions? That's what people can believe you have a PCI. Nice that we move that we received the project progress report, please. Councillor Gleeson moves, Councillor Plum seconds, those in favour, 6-0. Right, where are we at here?
Apologies, Mr Mayor, this was probably a better place for my question before about the version.
Yeah,
Just
it's
to-
financially related.
It's done.
You can repeat it if you want to,
No, I'm
in the
fine.
interest of ensuring it's in the right spot. Alpha Dipyard Safety, we're sitting at about 69% completed there. Is that project still got a little bit to go? Is it going to be on budget? Is it under budget?
Mr Mayor, it is under budget, yes.
So that's completed those works?
Yeah,
Physically they're completed?
Yep.
Because there might be some finances to realise, okay? The dinosaur streetscaping in Muttaburra, that's at 75%. Is there still a little bit more to go there, or is that one also complete under budget?
Probably a little bit more to go, yes. Just with the slabs.
Thank you.
There was some photos of the
I did that.
bins around, so
They look
this
impressive.
morning.
The asset management plan for sewage is at 82%. Are we complete? Or are we on budget, or are we going to need more?
It's not complete.
9.5 enough to finish it?
I haven't had a request.
Right, water plan is complete, is it? Water asset management?
I haven't received either. I need to get an update on those.
Enough questions from the chair, from the floor, anything further? There being none. 343, Community Care Services Report. Can I have somebody ask Councillor Peoples to rejoin us? And then I have somebody move that we receive the report, please. Councillor Plum moves, seconded by Councillor Hanson. Those in favour of receiving the Community Care Services Report? 7-0. Questions? I'm going to ask it again. I worked out before I did this for a living, so I'm obviously slow. But that projected annual loss, that's massive. I know we've had all these explanations when we went through the budget earlier in the year, and it seemed to satisfy me then, but it clearly hasn't now. Is that all just attributable to a percentage basis, and we've lifted those governance areas of council, what we're spending there, so therefore the percentage may not have changed, but the actual dollar value has? Is that real? It's just a lot of money. Like a lot of money.
I think we need to review those percentages of overheads.
Yeah, it's still, we did review it, but it's still on the same model as last year.
Yeah.
The actual net direct is a slight profit, which is still low. So that's probably more of the reason than the actual overheads.
Can we have a look, we'll have a 6-month figure for the next report, so can we just have a look at what that, and then bring that methodology back to us, please, for a more in-depth reminder, even if it is only for the ineptitude of the Mayor's memory, but whether the administrative overhead figure is truly reflective or whether it's just indicative. I mean, it's horrendous sum of money.
Is it, through Mr. Mayor, is that projected figure, is that projected figure obviously keeps changing in percentage-wise as actual is changing, that is changing?
Yeah, the overheads actually comprise of elected members, executive, admin, IT, and legal, insurance, and finance costs. So, but we might have to review the methodology of calculating it again.
Right. Thank you. Other questions? No. 351, the works report. Thank you, Sally. Officer of the day so far. You put your reports through a lot quicker than CEO has. We'll see how Vlad goes. Minus his tie, I note, for the state of the chamber. Officers returned in a state of undress, but that's fine. Can I have somebody move the, this is what happens when you beat me 12 games to 12 to 2 in miles and up before.
13.
That anyone was counting. Somebody please move that we receive Vlad's report. Thank you, Becky. Councillor Flum, second is Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour? Carried 7-0. Have any questions for Vlad? Or Vlad, do you have anything you wish to point out in your report?
Just want to point out a couple of things. The clarify the arrival, it's got there as 5th of May, it's actually 5th of January. That was a clerical, that's my, yeah.
0505 should be 0501.
0501, so that would be in Brisbane on the 5th, so thereafter it should be over here. And there was another, yeah, the leachate, as we knew that was going to happen mid-November and then mid-December. Start date on that is the 1st or the 2nd. Yes. That's about it. Any questions?
Questions, councillors?
The landfill cell run energy mid-November, that happened.
No, that's the one what I just explained. It will be 1st or the 2nd.
I thought you said
Run
that was
energy is the leachate. Is that the one that you're talking about?
No, in the new landfill, it's got landfill cell run energy to commence installation works early to mid-November.
Yeah.
That we've got Queensland border restrictions changed.
Border restrictions, that's going to happen now 1st of February.
1st of February, right, okay. So that opening date then probably slides back to
Look,
March?
that won't, I'm still hoping, and this will, you know, we can still open up and still have people coming in. That leachate will take about 5 to 6 days to do, so we can change it. That's just a proposed date, but yeah, we can change it. It's not going to be a big difference.
Further questions? Community consultation in Buck Hall was very interested in it, as would further report will show, very interested in that. No more questions for Vlad?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have one.
Yes.
The gravel we spoke about that was on the Stagmount Road, and have we done anything with that?
Yeah, Stagmount Road was, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's a part of this next the new event, and that was a part of it, and they were out there on, probably a week. I had a call from.
Sorry, Vlad, it can't be part of the new event. They put the gravel there before the
No,
event.
yeah. But the new event was, so they used it, and yeah. This event that was called now, they went out there and fixed up that road. Now, I'm not sure if they used that gravel or not. I don't know that. but they were out there under emergent works this time around. I can't tell you if they've used that gravel or not, I don't know. The supervisor's away and the acting is, I haven't had a chat to him yet.
So, sorry, late, but in your responses from the November meeting, sorry, yeah, so I asked about the gravel that was washed away on Stagnant Road, whether more was needed, and your response is that you've advised that more gravel is required, minor flooding has occurred, so we'll need more work. So, so obviously they do need more gravel put back on that road.
The emergent works, look, I don't know. I know that they need to put more gravel on the whole road. Yes, that's true. But
To replace the stuff that's no longer there, like as in the stuff that was carted and put there but then washed away.
Yeah, that's true. Now the stuff that Councillor Peoples is talking about was the stuff on the side of the road.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I don't know whether that used that up at this instant. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I need to find out. I know that they were working out there, and that because of the current event. But I wouldn't know, I need to get back to you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, probably the Mayor and myself expressed disappointment that that gravel had sat there for so long and not been put on the road. So at some stage it'd be good if it gets put on the road.
And we had an understanding of the cost associated with replacing the gravel that was carted and is no longer available to be put on the road, and what we're doing to replace that, who wears that cost? Is it claimable under the other flood damage that subsequently caused it to be dispersed? Or is it something that's borne by council, especially considering council's actually doing the work, not a contractor?
Yeah, I need to take that offline now.
Further questions? Will someone move 361, Damien's report to receive? Councillor Peoples, second Councillor Rogers, those in favour, 7-0. Way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing.
Yep. Mr Mayor, I was just going to say,
very much so.
that the contractor, we've had a contractor out doing all the rain and flood stations. So that work's been carried out recently across the area. We've also, I've been talking with Craig from Disaster Management in Longbridge last week. We've got to look at one of the ones up in Marlborough that we may have to do a survey on.
I think you're giving a false reading.
Yes.
Any questions for Damien?
I spoke to the contractor, Brisbane. They're going to check that out.
Check that out.
To see whether it was a local issue or a real problem.
About 1 metre out. No more questions? 371, will somebody please move forward and report be received? Becky, Councillor Plum, second Councillor Arthur, those in favour? Carried. Paula?
Works hopefully will progress on the caravan park over Christmas. I've got a couple of men going to stay back and do some work there because we've got no plan at the moment to do anything, so they've agreed to come in for a week to get the caravan park underway. Having a few dramas with our workshop extension. QFES requirements are quite large, and so I think we have to remove a building to get that 3 metre clearance from building to building. So we've got a toilet block in the middle. So we just talked to Brett a bit further about that and plan what we're going to do there. Yeah. I don't know if Brett's going to raise, we've got a rate arrears option on Tuesday. We've got one property going up for sale in Barcaldine or auction.
The auction is here.
the house is here before that.
Okay. Thank you. Questions for Paula?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, did you say we don't have a program for the caravan park, or we just don't have a plan?
Yeah, we've got a plan, we just don't have the men.
Plan,
Okay.
I think.
The resources.
Sorry.
Resources plan.
Plans, oh, sorry.
Yeah, plan, just
Sorry, I
no
missed the
plan.
T.
Yeah.
Sorry, no worry. No, hopefully it's up and going and usable for,
Mark,
yeah. Well, our tourist season, the last year or two has crept forward, which has been the plan, I guess.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Plum.
Paula, the removal of the old Aramac Hospital is awesome, so I couldn't attend that day, so that's.
So Queensland Health basically just came to tell the community that the building would be removed by June next year. Yeah, I think all the discussions have been had. And
Where's it go?
it's being demolished.
Quite literally manually pulled apart, and the toxic bits transferred to Townsville for incineration.
Councillor Plum, I'm sorry, I'm old, but I can't hear you.
I just worked in that building for quite a few years when I was school.
There's nostalgia there for you. By June, it will be no more.
Through you, Mr.
As
Mayor,
will Alpha.
Queensland Health did say that there may be some usable or salvageable material if community groups or entities are interested in it, whether it be a section of the building or timber flooring, or depending on how the contractor can clean it with respect to asbestos and lead and everything else.
Further questions? Three, 7, 2. Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Any discussion here, councillors? Mover? Councillor Gleeson, Councillor,
No,
definitely not. Councillor Peoples, Councillor Plum. Opposition?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor. So just to clarify, this is sponsorship more so than requesting a grant? Or do they fall under the same definition?
It's the same definition, Mr. Mayor, so there's $500 cash plus in-kind support.
Do we know?
Falls under the grant.
Do we know what that in-kind support is?
It's usually just bins and tables and chairs. They organise their own watering and they play up themselves, and the council doesn't supply any of that. It's just bins, tables and chairs. And hire of the pavilion.
But again, strictly speaking, it should come on that grant form. It's just come via email or letter.
Yeah.
I think, Mr. Mayor, we need to do some additional education with some of our community groups that are asking for a grant. We have a policy, and that is basically all councillors have control over, is our policy and our strategic direction. And if we're not following policy and still doing things and handing out money, I think we're at fault.
Clearly, I've missed the earlier discussion due to my PCI, so picking up a bit as we go. Is there and I don't know until I read the minutes what the outcome is, but was there a resolution then about process that needs to be followed that for terms of consistency you want to do here, councillors, or?
That was no resolution, that was a discussion.
But basically, I don't see that our process with respect to grants is being followed by the community groups. And so we're sponsoring, giving donations, cash, in-kind services, knowing full well that whether the policy is right or wrong, the policy is not being followed. And we're, to a certain extent, disregarding that and then still sponsoring, granting money, cash, in-kind services, knowing that it doesn't.
So when you say the policy, what are you meaning?
Well, we have a grants policy, council people. Part of that is
Where they can apply to the district managers for $500.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about?
yeah.
So really, probably what they're doing here, but the in-kind support is over and above that.
That
So
ticks
that's
it over
why-
the $500.
So that's why it's come to council, that's how I understand it.
I think the issue is though that the information that's captured on that form would give further information to councillors as to the need for the support for that group.
And what they're requiring.
Partially, yes, but also whether, you know, if a group's asking for a significant different in this case, obviously, because it's not, but if a group's asking for a lot of money, they've got a lot of money in the bank, council can make the decision, well, do they really need the money? You know, like they're sitting on a nest egg they're not using, that's the purpose behind the form to capture.
And the event don't have an issue with. The $500, which is the district manager's prerogative, I guess, don't have a problem with. It's just that when it ticks over, that other policy kicks in, to my understanding.
But if it was just to read the value of $500 full stop, and then
Well, it wouldn't even come to us if that was the
It
case.
wouldn't come to us. That's what I mean. I don't have an issue with that.
But don't we, there's no cost for people to hire staff if you're a local association? So if they just filled out the form and handed it into the thing, then...
Yeah, so I brought it to council because they didn't do the form. If they did the form, it was $500, I would have just signed it off. But I'm giving you the opportunity to give them $1,000, $3,000, but my recommendation is $500.
Oh, right.
And mentioning that there will be potential for in-kind support on the site, even if it is stuff that we ordinarily wouldn't charge for, just so that you as councillors are aware that it's not purely 500. If you think that's stingy, there's also these other things that go in on the site.
Which is similar to what we did with the Christmas party last week.
Correct. All right, have we reached the point where we can vote? Those in favour? Opposed? 6-0. And at that note, we will have to break for lunch. I come terrible place, but I just couldn't quite get us there before lunch.